Hi, welcome back. What I find so alluring about this show is its boundless intrigue and its unquantifiable aspects. Even though this season has ended, to me it's just the beginning, because as we all know, true mysteries don't have an expiration date, such as the Egyptian pyramids, Stonehenge, and the biggest mystery of all, why Twinkies last so long. So, today we will once again try to bring some structure into an otherwise unknowable, unexplainable mystery. Which brings us to our next tantalizing topic, and that is, how can the creatures tell who is who? What I mean is, how do they distinguish themselves from normal humans? How do they know? I believe this is a fair and logical question to ask, because the creature's false facsimile is so incredibly thorough.
I've missed you so much.
Megan, what are you doing?
Maybe I can come in.
So, because its deception is that good, the question still stands. How can they tell who's the monster and who's not? The creatures are somehow able to recognize humans from beast, but yet the humans have the hardest time recognizing who the creatures are. Let me explain. To begin, let's jump back to episode 7, where the creature named Jasmine was able to compromise the colony home, and was able to free roam around the house with little notice or interference from the residents. This was illustrated when Trudy in the same episode saw Jasmine laughing in an upstairs room, and instantly thought she was a human and resident of the house. So, the question still stands: how can they tell the difference between themselves and regular humans? Well, most likely they're using their sensory organs to do this. To find out if this hypothesis has any merit, we will break down the senses they are most likely using, such as touch, sight, hearing, smell, and taste, to narrow down which one of these senses they could be using. With that being said, let's start with touch. The definition of touch, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, is to put your hand or another part of your body lightly onto something or someone. So, from that definition and what we've seen with these creatures, they don't seem to be making any noticeable contact with each other or the humans they are after to determine who is who from just a touch. Next we will look at sight. The definition of sight according to the Cambridge Dictionary is the ability to see. Okay, that definition may seem short, but behind that short definition is a lot of promise. You see, sight is just a general term, but how sight works is multifaceted, through which a litany of different light spectrums is observed. I'll explain. By talking about this insect is a bee. According to North Carolina State's apiculture program, bees, like many insects, can't see the color red, but they can see in the ultraviolet spectrum, which should be noted humans cannot see. Bees can also easily distinguish between dark and light, making them very good at seeing edges. Okay, some great information. So from that intel there is a possibility that the creatures are able to see in a spectrum that humans cannot, like thermal imaging. You see, according to the National Geographic, infrared light has longer wavelengths and lower energy than visible light. It should again be noted that the human eye cannot see infrared light. Only mosquitoes, vampire bats, bedbugs, some snake and beetle species can use portions of the infrared spectrum for vision. Wow. Things really do line up well with this particular scenario. This will also explain some of the creatures' behavior, such as why they like to come out at night, because the animals that see infrared light are known to be nocturnal. According to Victor in episode 10, the creatures sleep in caves just like the vampire bats. Okay. There is so much promise with the sight aspect of how they can determine who's who. This will also explain how Donna survived by hiding in the bushes in episode 2. She was most likely hidden from the creatures because the plants reflect, transmit, and absorb different portions of the infrared light radiation. Next up is hearing. The meaning of hearing, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is the process, function, or power of perceiving sound. Okay. So, it looks like hearing could be what the creatures are using, at least a strong possibility. But I believe this theory comes with a caveat, and this is if the creatures can hear something that determines the difference between who they are and who the humans are. For example, if the humans have a heartbeat that they could detect, and the creatures don't have that heartbeat, then it'll be easy for them to distinguish who is their prey and who is their part of their species. To add to this, the creatures can be making sounds that cannot be detected by the human ear, and that only the creatures can hear. This ability would make it easier for them to distinguish themselves from their prey. Next is smell. Smell is defined as to perceive the odor, or scent, through stimuli affecting the olfactory nerves through the nose. Okay, them being able to detect the differences between themselves and humans through sense of smell may sound like a no-brainer, because it is one of the most common ways animals identify each other, but not so fast. The evidence we are presented with through the show contradicts some aspects of this being obvious conclusion. For example, in episode 10, Donna told Tabitha Matthews that she ran away from the creatures and hid in some bushes. The creatures, being as extremely predatorial as they are, if they had a keen sense of smell, would have easily tracked Donna. According to dog temperament, dogs can smell as far as 20 kilometers, 12.4 miles away. Bears and some cats can smell as far as 30 kilometers, 18.6 miles away. I'm sure Donna didn't run 18.6 miles away to hide. This by no means discounts the sense smell being one of their methods of identifying themselves to each other. Last up on the 5 senses is taste. Could they be using taste to identify each other, or to know who the humans are? Yes. But, from what we know about this technique, is lizards use their tongue to taste the scent particles around them. This flicking motion helps lizards to collect more scent particles. This could be what the creatures are using, but we don't see that flicking tongue motion from the creatures. I want to add 2 more unusual senses to the list that the creatures may be using. And one is Ampullae of Lorenzini. Sounds weird, because it is. It's something sharks have. The electric field sensors of sharks are called the ampullae of Lorenzini. They consist of electroreceptor cells connected to the seawater by pores on their snouts. What this means is sharks can see the natural electrical field emitted by all animals. The creatures may be using this technique. And last is pheromones. Pheromones are species and gender-specific chemical cues that provide information about the social and sexual status of an animal. Pheromones are used by most species, from single-cell organisms to mammals. This is most likely what the creatures are using to identify themselves and to distinguish themselves from their prey. So in conclusion, my 2 top sensory picks that the creatures are most likely using to identify themselves and distinguish themselves from their prey is infrared light sight and pheromones. Both of these could easily explain how the creatures are doing what they're doing, and how they could identify each other and separate themselves from humans. But again, this is just a guess. An educated guess, but a guess nonetheless. So, guys, tell me what you think about the creatures using their senses to tell the difference between each other and find their human prey. Leave your comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.